Abandoned ship. We're not caring about this car. We're thinking about the next year.
Exit clauses, yada yada yada.
Hulkenberg is the blue shell right now. Angle grinder guy, he gets a raise.
There you go.
Whoa.
He gets both salaries.
There you go.
What are they doing with the 5th and 6th seats?
Yeah, it's just Weenie Hut Formula One Junior now.
They don't fire up the same way that F1 cars do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tyred Boys podcast. I'm your host, Justin.
And I'm Aaron. Welcome back, everyone. We've got a good episode for you after the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend. We've got some F1 Academy. The 24 Hours of Le Mans was this weekend as well. So a lot of good stuff to get into. But Justin, it's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, sir. I mentioned this, right when we logged on. The Nigel Mansell mustache looks good on you, sir. I hear, the video listeners for this episode, you won't be able to see, but it is a glorious mustache. He is out there soaking in the sun. I heard reports that PETA was knocking down the door of Lewis Hamilton, bringing him up on charges. There was video evidence of him, being very cruel to animals this weekend. So that was a crazy story coming out of the Canadian Grand Prix. Criminal action all over the racetrack in that regard.
Yeah, and I mean, to not put too much blame on them. Unfortunately, the Canadian Grand Prix circuit hosts a lot of groundhogs. I felt really bad for Lewis after hearing that he had taken out a groundhog, because he seemed really, really torn up about it. And with all of his kind of like animal rights and human rights activism and everything that he's involved with, and just being outspoken in that, you could tell that it was not a great moment for him. So tough way for the weekend to go, just in terms of placement, and also some devastation on the circuit.
Yeah, all jokes aside, that is an unfortunate thing. On the pre-race show, they even showed like a close-up of one of the groundhogs. So yeah,
that's cruel.
Yeah, exactly. So just tragedy striking all over the place. But before we get into all of the Canadian Grand Prix stuff, we have some quick hitters that we want to get into. So Aaron, let's go through it.
Yeah, so the main quick hitter that I had for this week, we had the 24 Hour of Le Mans. So we have the multiple different series, the Hypercar, GT3, and all going through. The overall winner for this year was the AF Course car, with Robert Kubica being one of the drivers there. So a big win for former F1 driver. We also had Antonio Giovinazzi in third in the Ferrari. So he's had some very strong performances in the WEC series over the past few years since he left Formula One. But a pretty exciting, and from the start, it's fun seeing all of those hypercars and then all the different just series kind of all coming through at the start of the race, seeing everyone so packed close together and everything. So it was a fun 24 Hours of Le Mans. You can catch up with recaps and everything out there, but definitely a cool race to get to experience.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy watching the overnight stints of some of the drivers. I was focused on Giovinazzi's on board when I was able to watch. But yeah, some of the overnights, not necessarily his, but some of the overnight stints are, I think, some of the most I don't want to say exciting to watch, but like thrilling in some way. Because yeah, it feels like
Yeah.
visibility goes down to like zero. So
Well,
yeah, those are quite dangerous times that you have to be racing there. But it's all included as part of like the like skills that it's testing. So yeah, that's one of my favorite parts of the Le Mans 24 hour.
yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about like when they're going at the speeds that they are, and then you think about, well, oh, F1 has some night races, but those are under fully lit tracks, like bright lights throughout the circuit. There's no shadows or issues or anything like that. Where these guys for Le Mans are driving around a dark, unlit circuit using the headlights on their vehicles as they're and their memory of the turns as their kind of course correction throughout. So definitely, like you said, kind of exciting, but also maybe a little anxiety filled watching those drivers through the night stints of the race. But a very exciting one, and a lot of former Formula One drivers involved. Mick Schumacher finished in P11 with the Alpine Endurance team, so he's out there. I know Nick DeVries was out there driving as well. So a number of those F1 drivers getting involved with the Kevin Magnussen, another one that I know is out there. So a lot of them getting into that endurance racing outside of Formula One.
Yeah, whether it's in like you were saying the hypercar or the GT category, they're all getting involved. So yeah, fun to see branch out. It's always like big headlines on all of the motorsport outlets that I check out. Obviously, those are massive headlines, so tough to miss that. So yeah, congratulations to Robert Kubica and the team. That's quite an exciting result.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think that that team, that AF course, has been like a super long standing, like top of the field team. I know Ferrari has been pretty strong, Porsche has been pretty strong, and Toyota over the past few years. So that AF course, a team coming in on top there is pretty exciting.
That is very cool. Now I'm curious, what are some other quick hitters for us to go through here?
So I didn't have too much else for quick hitters themselves, but I know that in terms of looking over to the "Do You Work Here" segment, there were continual reports kind of coming out about a couple of different drivers. So Sergio Perez being one of those lead drivers still for the potential Cadillac seat next year. And so him being one of those top people being mentioned. Mick Schumacher's name's still in the ring. So a couple of kind of front runners, it seems like, for those seats. But one of the other interesting conversations was that Red Bull requested a exemption for Arvid Lindblad for the super license to give him the opportunity potentially to race in Formula One next year, and he was, I believe, approved for the super license exemption from the FIA. So if they do decide to make some shifts with those four Red Bull seats next year, then we may see Lindblad coming up from the Formula Two grid there.
Another entrant from the or another entrant into the musical chairs that, yeah, like you were saying, is those Red Bull seats. So yeah, something we'll have to keep an eye on whether he gets a seat or not. But yeah, the super license definitely helps, and if they're like supporting it, you could imagine that it would progress further than that as well. Hopefully for him, because that'd be a really good drive. Kind of in this same vein, I'm curious if you saw the results from the IndyCar race in St. Louis. Did you see the Joseph Newgarden crash with Louis
I,
Foster as well?
I did, yeah. So I didn't get to catch the entire race, but I did see some of the highlights. I saw that incident there, and so Yeah, that little scariness there in the IndyCar race with Newgarden.
Yeah, that one was wild, and the only reason my mind kind of goes back to it because moving forward we'll be talking about the Formula One Academy races, and there was a whole bunch of on track, I guess, on track accidents happening. So yeah, that just reminded me from the IndyCar race. Joseph Newgarden like pops up into the air, he like flips over. It's like in some ways it's really tough looking, but it's like pretty clear once he like lands on the what would you call that? Like the highest point on the car. It's like above
The
the halo and all that.
like the diffuser.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like once he landed on the diffuser and like nothing crumpled, you're just like, oh yeah, he's probably fine. And then he's just just a little head just skidding along the ground. So I was very happy that everybody was all right. Unfortunate for Joseph Newgarden. He's had such a good season up until now, and it's one of those ones where it was a coin flip. He could have dodged left, he could have dodged right, and he dodged like the totally wrong way. The car just like skidded, closed the door. So that one was crazy. But yeah, just glad everybody's all right and like they were able to go racing again. So that's cool.
Yeah, definitely. It's never exciting seeing those incidents, especially like the speeds that they go at in IndyCar and Formula One. There's always that general risk of danger, but yeah, it's always good to see, and especially to see something and be like, oh, like I know that he's most likely okay, and of course went to medical, got evaluated, everything was good, um, but yeah, some scary moments that are the tensions eased a little bit by the safety measures there with the cars.
Yeah, big time. I think just another example of them all, working appropriately. But yeah, as far as like other motorsport like headlines, if you will, those were the things that I had on my plate. Other than that, plus like the kind of do you work here stuff, because I didn't see any kind of news or rumors about really much else changing.
Yeah, the only other thing that I really had in the quick hitters kind of was for the Aragon MotoGP race that they had a week ago. So kind of during the off week, Mark Marquez had just a phenomenal weekend. So standing out with he had the fastest times in every practice session in qualifying. And then fastest lap of the race win. So like every single thing across the way, it was like a perfect weekend in terms of that for the MotoGP race that they had at Aragon this past week. But kind of crazy to think about. Like I know in F1 we every now and then we'll have someone have a grand slam where they lead the race start to finish, pole position, fastest lap, and everything. But to not only do all of those things, but also every practice session, topping the times and all. Just a pretty phenomenal weekend there from Mark Marquez, who is leading the championship at the moment in MotoGP.
That's very cool. Yeah, when you said so, is it the circuit name Aragon?
Yeah,
Where is that?
I'm trying to figure out where it's at. It's the Motorland Aragon. Let me see if I can do a little research. So it's a sports facility in Spain. So Spanish
Oh.
track that they have for MotoGP primarily. It looks like, but some other motorsports.
That's very
It,
exciting. Okay, gotcha. Because yeah, just on just recognition, I don't believe I've ever heard of that circuit. But if it's
well,
primarily for MotoGP,
I'll give you one guess at the designer.
is it our boy Herman Tilke?
It is our boy Herman Tilke.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah, so very cool. A track there in Alcañiz, Spain, designed by Herman Tilke. Uh, so yeah, pretty cool. And a pretty impressive weekend from him last weekend in that MotoGP race to kind of just all around top the charts there for the weekend.
Very cool. That's very exciting. Yeah, to be so dominant on just like a given weekend and then be leading the championship, that's got to be such a just a I don't want to say defeating, but a uh, alarming signal to his competitors of like how are we gonna beat this guy, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty domineering in that regard. So yeah, really happy to hear about such a strong performance. That's great.
Yeah, and for someone who's been around in MotoGP for quite a long time, he's a world champion in MotoGP, but I think more on the tail end of his career than in that kind of prime necessarily. It's just very
Okay.
impressive to see for someone who's been doing it for quite a while. But looking over to the Canadian Grand Prix weekend, some young drivers who haven't been doing it quite as long as Marc Marquez. We'll pop over the F1 Academy series, but before we do that, just want to remind you, if you are listening along, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. Check us out on YouTube for video versions. Other than this weekend, we'll have just the audio version up. But after every race weekend, putting out our recap episodes from the F1 races.
So yeah, we really appreciate your time for tuning in. But for now, back to the episode. Thank you very much. But yeah, we were gonna hit the Formula One Academy news. Interesting this weekend. So we had three races over the course of the weekend. So a pretty like grueling Canadian Grand Prix weekend for the Academy drivers in that regard. Usually they just have like the same practice qualifying and then double race, but adding in the third race is actually pretty interesting. So one of the names that we've talked about a whole lot, Ferrari supported driver Maya Vogue. This is notably probably the worst weekend that I've seen from her, just like across the board. Really tough qualifying, and I couldn't get a good sense from the broadcast if it was like a car trouble or just like general pace issue. Maybe she like couldn't get the track under her basically. But really tough qualifying position for Vogue, so that puts her out even for because they do like grid and reverse grid for the
Mhm.
races. It puts her way out, like even for those. So Maya Vogue really struggled over the course of all three races. That's just kind of a general note. But we can kind of zoom in, go race by race. So Chloe Chambers, race one, she was a bit of a focal point early on in the race. Takes some early contact, has damage to her front wing, but my note here, very Monty Python esque, is like even with damage, she just started like racing harder. She's like, "Oh, it's only a flesh wound. Like I can still race here, right?" And like more contact. She's like sliding everywhere, and then like she finally just kind of kind of concedes a couple of positions, and then this had me like actually laughing out loud. I don't know if I'm just a cynic or what, but there's a point in the race where driver Rafaela Ferreira kind of makes a mistake, goes off, hits the exit road to come back on, literally as the commentator is saying like re-enter safely, she just comes barreling across
Oh,
the track, just straight into another driver, straight into the side pod, just causes
oh,
like a whole kerfuffle, right? So
that's brutal.
race one was not great. A lot of contact, a lot of safety cars. So not the finest performance. Going into race 2, then I think this race kind of solidifies in my mind like a preference now for drivers. I think I've developed into a fan. Dorian Pan had an incredible race 2 and 3. She was taking a lot of pressure from a bunch of different drivers trying to fight for like the P4, P5 position. Every single entrant was like making contact, they're bumping her wheels. There's a point where like she literally almost like spins out from other drivers like making mistakes, but Dorian Pan was able every single time to get it back under control, keep her position as well. Like she didn't let it like send her backwards. So just like a really good kind of defensive drive in that regard, race 2, and she has to do it again race 3. She catches all sorts of contact again because race 3 we see like I think it's 4 safety cars. Chloe Chambers gets like 3 opportunities at a race restart in race 3. So obviously, like, not the cleanest racing going on, but Dorian Pan had elbows out. She was not giving those points up, and that was really exciting to see for race 2.
Yeah, and I think that's I can understand the fandom for Dorian Penn because she's a very strong driver and consistent. Like she doesn't always have the like fastest pace on the weekend of all the drivers, but week in and week out, you can kind of count on her to be there. Where, like you said, even with Maya Vogue, who's been one of those super consistent drivers, had a tough weekend this weekend and was really out of it across the 3 races there. But Dorian has been very, very strong and doesn't surprise me too much, especially with some of her other racing series that she's involved with like the Iron Dames and all that. She can take a little bit of contact and keep it moving in the right direction there. But Chloe Chambers, I've just been really impressed with this season, having some good pace week to week and taking a few pole positions now. Whether she's able to always convert those into the race wins is a little bit tougher, but she's showed some really, really solid pace across the season so far.
Yeah, I agree. Chloe Chambers getting her first race win on the season in race 3 there. So after a long weekend, getting knocked down in races 1 and 2, finally gets a clean one done in race 3. I think my favorite part of the Formula One Academy weekend in race 2, the safety car causes like a final like lap and a half shootout. There's like 4 drivers that are legitimately in the hunt for P2. Like they all, or not P2, P1. They all have the pace like to be able to take it. I'm pretty sure it's from Felbermeyer who's leading the pack at this point. And the 3 drivers behind her put her under so much pressure when she gets to the final chicane. Like she makes a mistake, goes wide, and then everybody like goes around her. It's like classic racing in that regard. So yeah, the final moments of race 2 were very exciting. But yeah, standout weekend I think for Chloe Chambers. Weekend to forget for Maya Vogue. Yeah, and I think Dorian Pan really protected herself against what could have been a pretty tragic nightmare of a weekend. So yeah, keeping it clean in that regard. But yeah, a pretty fun Formula One Academy weekend, I would say.
Yeah, and even across that with the weekend, Dorian Penn picks up 10 extra points to extend her lead over Chloe Chambers in the championship. So not just being able to kind of survive, but also pick up some strong points, especially in the first and third races to with that win, and then the P4 to take a lot of points and yeah, extend that lead. So definitely a strong season so far from her. We've got the next race coming up in Zandvoort, so a little over a month away before we'll get to see the F1 Academy back. But looking forward to those races there in the Netherlands.
Yeah, big time agree. For now, though, let us move along the Formula One weekend. We did not have Formula 2 or Formula 3, so we'll be able to get right into the racing here. But first, as always, if we are post race, that means we got to throw Aaron in the hot seat. Aaron, are you ready?
Yeah, different seat for me this week, but it's still toasty over here, so I'm ready to get going.
And all 5 questions are really in the weeds, super specific, very granular questions about track turns, and
Those are
the
my favorite.
circuits themselves. Yeah, I knew they were, so we got you loaded up here. So for everybody playing at home, we got 5 questions. 3 multiple choice answers, and we're going to see how well Aaron knows his Canadian Grand Prix lore. Aaron, are you ready?
Yep, let's get it.
All right, so question number 1. The first Canadian Grand Prix at the Montreal circuit was held in 1978, where which hometown hero won this inaugural Grand Prix? Is it A, Lance Stroll? Is it B, Gilles Villeneuve? Or is it C, Alan Berg? And these are all Canadians.
I'll go B, Gilles Villeneuve.
You got it. The individual who the circuit is named after, rest in peace to this driver. But yes, sir, you are correct in that regard. Question number 2. So, famously ending the race of many world champions in 1999, the wall on the exit of the final chicane has been dubbed what? Is it A, the Wall of Death? B, the final wall, or C, the wall of champions?
C, the Wall of Champions.
He's got it. Very correct. And we saw some contact this weekend, but nothing spectacular. So it does not take any scalps this race this time. But yeah, moving on to question number 3. So the 2011 Grand Prix became the longest one to date due to extensive rain delays. Which British driver came from the back to take victory over Sebastian Vettel? Was it A, Jenson Button, B, David Coulthard, or C, Martin Brundle?
A, Jenson Button.
Nailed it. See, if I was very cruel, I would have thrown Lewis Hamilton in there because, like, you can't not think he's the winner because he's won everything.
I was already like waiting for his name to come up, but then when it was 2011, I was thinking, oh, actually, I don't think so because I know that the Canadian. Well, we'll see where the rest of the questions go, but I know a couple facts about Lewis with the Canadian Grand Prix.
All right, well, I'm happy that was not a trick question. We are 3 for 3 so far. I'm on the edge of my seat. All right, let's get 5 out of 5. All right, so question number 4. This Frenchman grabbed his first and only win here in 1995 with a little help from Michael Schumacher giving him a lift back to the pits. Who was this driver? Is it A, Olivier Panis? Is it B, Jean Alesi? Or is it C, Bertrand Gachot?
B, John Alesi.
Nailed it. And you have the iconic videos of him hopping onto Mick's car and giving the wave of winning. So a wonderful moment there for the Canadian Grand Prix. And then question number 5. A 16-lap shootout saw 2 teammates going head-to-head for the win in 2022. Which driver came out on top that day? Was it A, Sergio Perez? Was it B, Lewis Hamilton? Or was it C, Max Verstappen?
C, Max Verstappen.
He nailed it. He nailed it, folks. We have a 5 for 5. It's a momentous day. I think, Aaron, you do indeed know the Canadian Grand Prix.
Yeah, that was a good one though. I think I enjoyed those questions. Lots of twists and turns, needing to pay attention closely to all the corners of the track. But yeah, no, that was a good one. And 5
Very
for 5.
cool.
Yeah, solid performance.
I think the producers are going to be pleased. No flogging for us here. So we still have some Canadian Grand Prix chat to get into. Now, the first thing I want to talk about, because this is not racing related at all, and I think that was part of the problem. I was howling at the driver press conference at the start of the weekend. Obviously, Max. And dude, it's my boy Tom Clarkson. That's why. Like, if it's anybody else, fair. But even Tom Clarkson is catching strays. He is out here asking the dumb questions. But yeah, I just felt bad for Tom. I was like, oh
Well,
no, not him.
I feel like Max gets it, and I can understand it. Like Max is he's such a racer. All he wants to talk about is racing, and he likes to max explain to to everyone what all the different intricacies of racing. And so when all of the questions that are being thrown at him are about these like kind of external things, or oh, how about your run-in with George, oh, how about you and Lando, oh, how about your penalty points, oh, what's gonna happen, are you gonna get banned, he's just like he just gets tired and is like, I just, can I talk about driving the car please? That's what he's looking for. So yeah, I could definitely see just across the weekend he was getting a little bit frustrated with a lot of the media coming towards him.
Yeah, because it's focusing more on like racing etiquette and trying to like pit two drivers against each other, like while they're sitting right
Yeah.
next to them on the couch. Like, oh, how do you feel comfortable racing, Max? It's like, bro, if we were in a courtroom, somebody would be yelling leading question right now. Um,
Yeah,
so yeah,
and I
really,
mean,
like on both sides, it's tough because like we've talked about before, like it is their job. Some of what they have to get is like some interest driving something or other going on. But then the other part of it is like, yeah, he has to be hounded this question 100 times by 100 different publications, and that's got to get old after the first one. So yeah, I definitely empathize. I just thought it was funny where it reminds me of the there's a news snippet that lives rent free in my mind. It's Marshall Mathers in the news again, from like a song intro, and it's like Max Verstappen in the news again for just like something something you said.
oh yeah, and I mean, you like, especially with the penalty points too, you can look back, and I think it's an interesting topic to, especially after this weekend, to think about what kind of gets you a penalty point. Like Max has one that was from blocking George Russell on a slow lap in a practice session, and or like in qualifying in a slow lap, or he's gotten ones for kind of a number of reasons that were like seemingly innocuous, or at least like could be a reprimand, maybe a fine or something to the team. But Max has these penalty points. So like whether you like the reasons he has them or not, like he's just trying to drive a clean race weekend every weekend. And so the questions being about, oh, are you gonna make it through cleanly? He's probably like, I'd hope to every week. like
Mhm.
like that's kind of the goal, guys, is to make it through without hurting the car and hurting my championship chances. So yeah, I can understand his frustration a little bit, but yeah, on the other side, the media has to get their questions answered. They have to write their articles and whatnot. So
Yeah, just I just thought a funny, lighthearted place to start, especially in the case that George is kind of supporting him in some ways. He was like, to assume that he's gonna do things that are gonna like hurt his race, I think is like pretty bad as well. So yeah, I think the drivers are kind of in agreement on that, and they just, they move past it way faster than the people asking them questions do. And I think that becomes apparent in those moments. But yeah, I want to talk more about the racing as a whole, maybe talk more about the qualifying, more about the Sunday race. Let us frame that with our winners and losers, Aaron. So tell me about your winners.
Yeah, so my first winner this week, and I don't think it'll be any big surprise, but it's Mercedes. Just across the weekend, looked very strong during the practice sessions. George Russell's qualifying lap was just standout. That was a just a he balled out on that lap. I don't know what else to say. He was looking, and he talked about it afterwards, looking at the timing kind of on his steering wheel as he's going around and seeing 1/10 up, 2/10 up, 3/10 up, 4/10 up, and eventually finishing about 2/10 ahead of Max. Just a really, really solid lap from him, and the Mercedes car seemed to be working well. Kimi Antonelli getting a phenomenal move off the first the start on lap one to get past Oscar Piastri. He holds the inside line strong, and then across the race, like both George and Kimi looked really strong. George was confident, held off Max early, and then just kind of was able to drive his race. Kimi coming on strong later and putting some pressure on Max, not able to get past him. But the double podium, Kimi Antonelli being the third youngest podium finisher in Formula One history, just behind Lance Stroll and Max Verstappen by a couple of months. So really, really awesome performance from the Mercedes squad this week.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. They, without copying your homework, I came to that answer independently as well. Yeah, I thought for specifically Kimi Antonelli, the only thing that I would add is coming from the off week after the pretty rough triple header. We heard him; he was pretty despondent after some of those results, the double DNF plus the like way in the back finish or whatever it was. So for him to come back, have an exceptional weekend, like you said, getting up onto the podium, I think just like huge props to Kimmy in that regard. Yeah, and then George just hooking it up all weekend. All of the concerns over lap one, turn one contact between Max and George. Oh, they gunning for each other. Oh, no, George just beats him off the line by whatever, like 5/10 of a second or something like that, and he was just gone.
Yeah,
Race pace was there, tire strategy was there. I don't think George was ever really like under pressure from Max in that regard.
No, and one of the fastest reactions that I recall seeing what from the start of the race, I think it was like point zero or like 0.24, 0.024 second like reaction time for George. Max was like I think 600ths of a second behind on it. And so yeah, like having the front and then also getting a better start, George just kind of ran away with it from there. But looking over to my second winner that I had this week was Fernando Alonso. He had a strong weekend, really strong qualifying. I know we've talked about him a lot, kind of trying to figure out what's going on with the car, his bad luck, all of these different things. But in the past couple of weekends, he's now picked up points in back-to-back races and just looked really, really strong throughout the race here to bring it home for the P7 finish. Definitely, I think the Aston Martin team, the upgrades and all that they brought to the car, the work that they've done seems to have put that car in a spot where it has a lot of potential. It may not be easy to extract, but Fernando seems to be kind of getting the best that he can out of that car lately.
Yeah, it was encouraging. Even if he didn't have exceptional race pace, he at least didn't like topple backwards. He was at least able to hold that track position, which may be an issue previously that they've had, where even if they're able to, have it over one lap or a few laps pace, like they're not able to maintain it, and that was clearly different here for Alonso. So that's a pretty good shout because yeah, I think over the last two outings or so, we've seen big leaps forward from the Aston Martin outfit. His side of the garage specifically, I think Lance Stroll is still struggling a little bit, but yeah, that's a pretty interesting shout. Mine was my second winner. I think is very zoomed in as somebody who often is wearing a McLaren hat while watching the races. I I thought it was pretty funny where it's like you have two McLaren drivers, they're like both on the hunt for like a podium. Oh, it's getting like towards the end of the race. They're gonna have to, battle on track, and then Oscar Piastri does nothing, profits, and then just like goes on to just get points. He literally just like kept going in the way that he intended to, and Lando did all the work for him. So yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately, the two McLaren drivers. On one hand, one of them it was a winner in more of a joke fashion, and the other, I think, quite a loser in that fashion. The move from Lando Norris feels very symptomatic of like things that we've seen from him previously, where it's like this odd headspace where he can overtake drivers if it like doesn't matter for the race, but if it
right.
is about like track position and points, like all of a sudden he just is okay with sub 50-50 percentages where like other
Yeah,
drivers wouldn't take a 40-60. He's comfortable with like a 35-65. He's like, I'll go for it, right?
yeah,
And this is like the real like worrying trend for me as like somebody who enjoys the McLaren team. That's not consistent with the way that they do their like team calls, where if you look at McLaren, you would say like they operate with the bird in hand is worth two in the bush. Like they clearly
yeah,
believe that the way they race when they have two at the front or like in points paying positions. So for Lando to do a move like that, especially like on his teammate, I think is just big questionable. Obviously, he's admitting, sorry, that was stupid, blah blah blah, and it's like I'm happy he owns it, but it does feel like an overtake that he has had trouble making
yeah.
before, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I think like you said, like on the winner side, Oscar kind of wins by pure luck because by just the fact that Lando didn't hit him hard enough, he's able to continue on and doesn't really lose out too much to Max, gaining, I think Max picked up like 6 points on him across the weekend in the drivers championship, so he still has a pretty significant lead there over Max, but also now Lando in particular with that DNF from the weekend. And so Lando was one of my losers on the weekend as well. I think it's like you said, it's symptomatic of a similar issue that we've seen. I think he gets impatient. He's so used to like when the car has been good over the past season or so of time, he's so used to being able to breeze by a lot of the competition so that when he is in those tight contentious fights with a car going similar pace, him and Oscar, him and Max, he's or even him and Lewis earlier this season, he's struggling to set up the overtake even if he has better pace. He's like, oh well, I'm this close now, so I'm just gonna go for it this lap instead of maybe saying, okay, let me get myself in a little bit of a better position and all, Because Oscar didn't do anything like crazy. He didn't defend any certain way, or he just held the inside line, and Lando just went into the back of him, not making a move. Like, he could have tried to go to the inside and get past him, but instead he just kind of continued to try and hang it around the outside where there was no space. So a tough weekend for Lando. I do respect that he owned that in terms of the team immediately. Like, he realized what he did, but I think the other like kind of wonky side of it that's an interesting thing to think about is that even though it was an incident between teammates, he did receive a penalty. So he receives a 5-second post race penalty, but he got no penalty points for it. And so it's not a big thing where I'm like, oh yeah, like hammer him with points or anything. But it's interesting because in similar instances when a driver's penalized for causing a collision, there's typically penalty points involved. And I mean, I guarantee if Max had done that same thing, even if it was him taking himself out of the race and not affecting the driver that he ran into, I'm willing to bet that he gets slapped with that last penalty point to hit him with a race ban. And so I think overall the FIA has done a decent job this year. I think they've tried to be a bit more consistent with their penalization for the most part. But that's a little interesting kind of decision, I guess, from the FIA this week with not throwing a penalty point. Not that it does anything to Lando and all, but it's more that consistency thing.
Yeah, that is that is a really interesting point where you could easily feel as though some of the rules are applied to different drivers differently. That's yeah,
And I'm not
especially
trying to like say that there's some vendetta against Max or anything, but I think that it's I don't know if it's maybe because it was inter-team contact that maybe they look at it a little bit differently, or where the decision making comes from, but it's definitely like a slight inconsistency that I think at least a few other people noticed on the weekend when I was kind of recapping through everything.
sure. I mean, I find nothing wrong with pointing something like that out because yeah, if in some way the rules are being applied differently, well, then it's like that's probably not great if the FIA is in some way like picking favorites or
It it
holding
starts
others.
to yeah, it starts to make like it starts to raise questions, and I think after everything with like Abu Dhabi 2021 and just over the past few years with kind of the fixation that some people have on the FIA's decision making and all, that you want to avoid as much as you can putting yourself in kind of these situations where people are looking really closely, like why this, not like why is this is inconsistency, because then you get people who are the crazy fanatical fans that are like will say, "Oh, it's a vendetta against Max. If Max had done it, then da 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 da." And so, more than like not trying to just throw points at people's license or anything, but just to be like having some consistency is always good. But I do think the FIA has done a pretty solid job this year for the most part. They're human. They're gonna have their moments, but yeah, overall, just an interesting day and a tough situation for Lando to just put himself into. That definitely will sting for a little bit in the championship standings as well. He's only 21 points up on Max, even after last week. Max only getting that 1 point kind of put himself back where he was. a race ago.
Yeah, it's really tough when the other drivers that you're fighting against have really like high percentage uptime. These no points gained weekends are just really brutal. And you hope it's equaled out at some point over the course of a long season. But yeah, a full no points is really tough. I'll offer this on the side of the penalties and application of penalties from a viewer's standpoint. I'd much rather be curious about why is that infraction a 5 second, but this similar one was like 10 seconds. I'd rather
Yeah,
be asking that question than why are Toto and Christian Horner having like full on daytime dramas on like the race radio, like literal
yeah,
lobbying for the application of rules in their
yeah.
favor. I'd
Like,
much rather live in this world than 2021, because while 2021
yeah.
was
It was
fun,
a it
we
was a very exciting season, but
it was an
yeah,
exciting season, but because there were these like really weird things happening, like the race on race, like radio lobbying,
yeah,
that made it like really, really uh like
just bizarre.
scandalous and
Yeah,
juicy and bizarre. It felt like a fever dream happening.
a little bit. Yeah,
So I'm happy I experienced that Formula One, that flavor of Formula One. I'd much rather have this where it's like, wait, but his was
yeah.
10 seconds. Why does Lance just get 5? Like that seems to
Mhm.
me like a much more reasonable world to be in when you're posing your questions. So I hear you, believe me, I hear you, and
Oh
I
yeah,
don't want favorites, but I think we have trended upwards in that regard. Like you were saying, the
yeah,
FIA has overall done a pretty good job, and when we think of where we've come from in like the short like past, yeah, it's not that bad.
yeah. And even I mean, we had some lobbying this race a little bit. There were some post race things that were thrown at the wall to see if anything sticks, and everything, especially with it ending under safety car. There were some kind of funky situations where people were passing each other after the race had finished, but while the safety car was still technically active. And there had been, I guess, guidance about that last season and whatnot. So maybe they'll issue a warning again because I don't think anyone ended up picking up penalties from it. But there were like 7 drivers that were called to the stewards afterwards. So potentially, if something similar happens at a later race this season with finishing under safety car, it, I wouldn't be shocked if people do like pass under safety car at the end to see penalties handed out, just because now I feel like they've had that warning of like, no, this is still a safety thing. Like you've gotta keep in the regulations even post race as well. So not anything that caused any issues this weekend, but I'd be interested if we do run into a similar situation, how that ends up looking later on in the year.
Yeah, it is a weird moment and probably just like confusing for the drivers, like tough because some teams are going to be communicating heavily. Some teams like aren't going to be saying anything to their driver as to like what the changes are. So yeah, that's just like a tough, likely just miscom scenario. And that was another like sub unfortunate thing of the Lando Norris crash was like, yeah, we had to end the race under safety car where previously Piastri like is just in DRS of Kimi Antonelli. Kimi
Mhm.
Antonelli's like 1.5 seconds off of Max. I don't think anybody was catching George,
No, I
but
think
it
Max was about 3 seconds off at that point, so I
sure.
think running off into the sunset. But
But in those final moments, like there was a feeling that positions and points were still up for grabs, and then
yeah,
like and then it just ices and finishes under the safety car. So unfortunately for the viewer experience, it's like pretty anticlimactic. And then the last thing I'll say, as far as like as far as like winners, losers. Isaac Hadjar, I think, big short end of the stick, gets all the way into Q3. His teammate starting from the back accomplishes nothing even from that position as well. So I think Isaac Hadjar, he's got good pace over one lap, but isn't able really to deliver much more. So it's clear that this guy's fast. He's got grit. He's got heart,
Yeah.
but the car underneath, depending on the track, it seems, is kind of where his results are variable. So yeah, kind of unfortunate for Isaac Hadjar. He's one of my dark horses, one of my sleeper picks. So yeah, to see him like have pace on a Saturday and then just like fall backwards, it's tough.
Yeah, it was very Haas-esque from last season when Nico Hulkenberg was putting in those really solid qualifyings and then just kind of dropping back through the race. It just, yeah, felt like the long run pace of the Racing Bull this weekend. And Liam Lawson was struggling for a long time before he ended up having the DNF from retiring the car for some mechanical issues and all. Definitely struggled, and I felt like my other loser on the weekend was the Alpine team, and so I felt like it was a very similar kind of situation between them and Racing Bulls. You have Pierre Gasly just kind of struggling and throughout the weekend on pace and everything, even in qualifying, and then during the race, he qualifies in P20, and then you have Colapinto, who's looked a little bit better this weekend getting into Q2. He qualifies P12, but then during the race he just kind of drops back as well and ends up just one place further back, even with some DNFs there in the race to finish P13. And it's tough because like the Alpine team, they brought in Colapinto hoping to be in the points. They had this like end of season upward trajectory with the team. They've had flashes in the pan this year with Pierre getting higher up into the points and everything earlier on in the season, but it just seems track specific, and Franco is not making the difference from Jack doing. It's really that's kind of, I guess, where the losers is like Franco has just kind of, you would hope that he would kind of have a little bit of an upward trajectory, get back to some of the strong moments that we saw last year from him when he came into the Williams seat. But he seems to really just be struggling, and the Alpine team seems to be struggling with pace. So it's like it hurts Franco because he's obviously not being able to put any really good performances out there. And it's like, is it just where the car is, or is he just on the same level as Jack? Are neither of them that guy, or is the car just really, really having a tough year? So yeah, a tough spot for the Alpine team this weekend.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I was struggling between, was it Alpine, or did I want to talk about Isaac Hadjar? It was kind of up in the
Yeah.
air for me in that regard. So yeah, I don't think that's a bad pick in for that team, because yeah, that was a bit of a tough weekend. Bit of a tough weekend for them as well. So yeah, that covers both of our winners and losers here. The other thing I wanted to talk about on a race weekend that was so tire strategy seemed to be a big point of conversation. And some tracks that we go to, it's pretty clear whether it's going to be, a one stop or a two stop. But this one seemed to be up in the air like throughout even like the race up until like halfway through or so. There was still some. Halfway through is like dumb to say, but like the first third of the race, it felt like for some teams, whether they were doing a one stop or a two stop, was still like kind of up in the air, especially for, I guess it would have been the medium tire runners that
Yeah.
started. So I thought that was really interesting. And then kind of to lead off that conversation, the Haas Ocon one stop strategy, that was awesome. And unfortunately, hindsight is lovely. It's proof that the one stop was there, but I don't
Yeah.
think like the top teams were really trusting it. They were like, there's no way it's going to be as fast as like what they're doing, so they all opt for the two stop. But you could see from Ocon's pace, like it was a fine way to go about that Canadian Grand Prix, which I thought was very cool because it's not often you get to it's not often that gets like accentuated or highlighted in that regard. But I thought Ocon's one stop was really really strong. Maybe he wasn't progressing at a certain point, but he was definitely able to hold track position and make a good run at it. So I thought that was cool to see.
Yeah, and I love the tire strategy options. I think the other side of that coin was the Ferrari team with Charles Leclerc. Like it was interesting to see Charles advocating for himself, like over the team radio, kind of I want plan C, I feel good on the tires. And at that point, I mean, he was 20 some laps into the race and he's like, oh, I want to go plan C, which was the one stop for them, and they call him in to pit. And I was looking at it and I'm like, his race pace on those medium tires, he was maybe 7/10 slower than the drivers who were on the newer hard tires and everything who had pitted already. And I was looking at it, I'm like, a pit stop's 24 seconds lost or so at the Canadian Grand Prix, I think is about the amount. So that's like he'd have to be losing 7/10 of a or 7/8 of a second per lap for like 30 laps before that like starts to switch over into the two stop territory. Like he was still having really solid pace on the mediums, and I think that he could have gone for the one stop. And the only thing that's I guess kind of funky in that situation is that I don't know if it makes any difference in his race. Like I think with the drivers ahead of them, the Mercedes, Max, the McLarens until Lando DNF'd, like I think even if they did a one stop, they weren't going to leapfrog anyone. But I think that might have been the faster option for a couple of the drivers who were able to hang those medium tires out there for quite a while.
Yeah, and a question that you have to ask if you're the pit wall is not only like is the tire compound faster or slower, it also matters like where you're going to come out when you're leaving the pit lane. Like if you're coming into the middle of some other like squabbling group of cars that have, they're in DRS trains just around and around, you're not going to be able to progress your system after that then either, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where like the pit wall data is in some way stronger than the driver data, where they feel like, well, we just have more info on more variables of the race. Yes, we understand that you have a feel here for what's happening,
Yeah.
but like we have a bit of a even if it's a low resolution photo, it's likely higher resolution than your view from inside the cockpit, and that's
Yeah.
like the tension that you always feel between driver and pit wall, when you're getting these not like yeah, I guess you could just say like miscoms. Basically, they're just like miscommunications or disagreements or whatever. But likely when they see the data after a race, they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, you're
Well,
right. There was no."
yeah, and that's kind of what happened, I think, with Charles after the race. He was asked about it and about the team radio messages, the team not listening to him and all, and he was just like, he basically was like, they have more information than I do. So at the end of the day, unless I'm like 100% confident that what I'm saying is gonna be the right one, then I'll override the team. But otherwise, like, I'm gonna trust in them to make the right call, and I really respect that from him, because that has to be tough to be like, I feel really good on these tires, like I think it's fine, and then to just end up kind of being like, oh, but all right, I'll do what you guys want me to and have that what if. That's probably a little bit tough, but like I said, I think in this situation, it doesn't make a huge difference. For the Haas team, though, it did, making that one stop. I was really impressed. They were kind of a standout. They were on the edge of being one of my winners this weekend as well, a P9, P11, and after the Spanish Grand Prix, I was looking at it and going, are these results maybe just track specific? They just, like, the Spanish Grand Prix circuit just worked well for them and all, and now this is back-to-back weeks in the points for the Haas team again after some upgrades and everything, and they're looking a bit stronger here over the last couple race weekends at least, and so I'm interested to see where that carries on, and similar with Nico Hulkenberg, the Sauber has had a little bit better pace these past couple of weekends. Nico's gotten himself into the points. Still waiting on Gabby to pick up some points on the year, but I think with the way the Sauber has been, and maybe the tightness or the shifting of that midfield pack, there's still going to be some opportunities for him to pick up some points.
Yeah, and Bortoletto clearly is making progress. Like, he's not at the delta between him and Hulkenberg is not as large as some of the other teams that are on that, like, experience driver plus like rookie driver makeup.
Yeah.
I think as the Sauber vehicle improves, you can see Bortoletto's performance improving as well. So I think there's, like, some genuine talent and skill expression kind of coming out in that regard, which you can't really say for everybody. So I think that's fun to see. But yeah, it seems like if you look at Hulkenberg and his results, he's probably extracting, like, true or close to true pace out of that car, and, like, if when he gets a result that's likely the max result for that car on a weekend, and then you can see where Bortoletto is falling anywhere after that. But yeah, overall, I think this performance from specifically Hulkenberg in the Sauber was really good to see. A good qualifying, and then a solid follow up Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's exciting seeing those midfield teams kind of bouncing around. Williams has struggled a little bit more the past couple weeks, but even Carlos Sainz gets himself into the points on the weekend, moving up 6 positions and getting himself to P10. So there's been a lot of kind of shifting of sand a little there in that fight. Haas and Racing Bulls are now tied at 28 points for P6, P7. Aston Martin with Fernando's recent performances is up to 22 points. Sauber's all the way up to 20 points. And so an 8-point gap there from P6 to P9 is a really tight midfield battle there, which is exciting to see as we're getting into this kind of middle portion of the season.
Yeah, there are smaller points grabs and not every weekend, but it's funner to see those types of battles rather than just, like, 4 teams on 0 for, like, half of the
Yeah.
season or whatever it was. So yeah, it's really nice to see the jockeying of millimeters effectively between these outfits. That's very exciting to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess any other, like, final notes that you wanted to touch on here for the Canadian Grand Prix?
No, I think we ran through who we had our winners and losers, and I think spent time on at least each team. We hit we hit the Ferraris in that regard. We hit both the, we hit the Red Bulls and the Mercedes and everybody. So yeah, no, I think we covered at least all of the teams. Shorter episode this week, but without the Formula 2 and Formula 3 weekends,
Yeah.
that does kind of take a decent chunk out of the conversation. So yeah, I'm ready to get into the cool down lap if you are, sir.
Yeah. So, well, just to round out the top three for the Canadian Grand Prix, we had George Russell, then Max Verstappen, Kimi Antonelli picking up his first podium of his career. As we mentioned, third youngest driver to be on the podium, so very exciting for him. And I obviously, like you said, after a tough triple header stretch that he had to bounce back for that was pretty mega. But yeah, to move on over into the cool down lap, we have the flavor of the week this week.
Now, this one I've been waiting on for a long time. We had, a break in between the races, but then also previously we had a different edition of the cool down lap. So this one's been on the back burner for a while. So let me take you through mine here. My food
Right.
for the week, we had stacks previously, so I believe the week before. So we had tortillas, tostadas out in force. We had the chicken and the rice army present as well. So yeah, stacks tend to be they're probably my favorite meal at this point. I think I've since retired some of my other favorite meals, and I think the stack is where it's at. So we had some of those recently. I love that. My music here for the week. There's a song that was on. Effectively, it's just like a short YouTube channel or a short YouTube video. It's like effectively promo for something else, but the song that they use in the video, it's like so to my brain. And what I ended up finding was they took a song and then slowed it down. So they altered it in some way, and the slowed down version is like it is exactly to my like ear palette. So it's just been earwormed, and I've just been listening to that like effectively over and over. The song's called Gasoline Dreams, and like I said, it was just like a like promo YouTube video thing. So that's been my music. I love that song. It sounds so good. And then my visual medium, my movie for the week. This one comes from a friend of the show, following up on our or a flavor of the week conversation from likely weeks ago at this point. Do you remember when I was telling you about Godzilla and the
Yeah.
heritage that Power Rangers has in that?
Yep.
So it was recommended to me to watch the very first Godzilla film. So the 1954 Japanese release. So
Wow.
like where Godzilla like the story started. And what I learned in this conversation is there's like a Japanese Godzilla arc and like an American Godzilla arc.
Okay.
So they don't necessarily share like storylines, but they definitely share the same like lineage. So it was recommended watch the 1954 Godzilla, and this is my visual medium for the week. In 2023, a studio did, I'll use the term like a spiritual successor to the 1954 Godzilla. They adapt the story from the original one and like tell it from a differing perspective. So it's like a very, very similar story using the same like location and basic premise. And then it just kind of shifts it a little bit, updates it, and like doesn't try to retell the story, but maybe like flesh out some of the important details.
Mhm.
Dude, this Godzilla film, it's called Minus One. It's Godzilla Minus One. It came out in 2023. It was so cool. It was so cool. And like to find that there was a genuine story being told, there were characters that we were learning about. It like shocked my brain in a way that like my it, if I was telling younger Justin what a Godzilla movie was, I'd be very surprised. Like, wait, there's a plot, there's characters. I would have just assumed that it was like giant lizard stomping around for whatever 90
Yeah,
minutes and then film over. No, there's like moments where I was like genuinely touched of like, characters connecting and this and that. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is like this is a Godzilla movie, right?" The
yeah,
I don't want to spoil it, but one of my favorite moments from the film is a conversation between the main character and his like friend, like housemate, roommate at a certain point where he's like telling her about these nightmares that he's been having, and like the dialogue and the word, like how he is like relaying his feelings to his roommate. Dude, it is like chilling. It is truly chilling the way he's describing his experience. So not only was I very pleasantly surprised as to like what I encountered there, like it was awesome. Like, and the like Godzilla moments where he's like being a big bad lizard, dude, crazy, like insane production value, like crazy moments, dude. Like
that's
blockbuster cinema, like I want to be blown backwards, like epic moments. So as far as recommendation goes, that was like one of the funnest surprises to get into a couple of these Godzilla stories because yeah, I was very pleased at what we found in that treasure trove.
Yeah, that's cool, and especially for a something half a century later, being 50 years before a spiritual remake, or I no longer, 70 years. I did it
Mhm.
54, yeah, 70 years later, and for it to tie together and everything, that's a pretty sweet way to do that.
Yeah, and it was beautifully done. Like if you I watched them pretty closely together, like within a week of each other. So like there's obvious things you could be like, well, but actually in the new one it was this. It's like, yeah, oh, okay. But if you suspend your disbelief, like you're experiencing the same story, just like from a different angle. So it's very good. If there's anybody out there looking to enjoy a Godzilla film, boy is this one to get into it. So yeah, that's my flavor of the week. But Aaron, I'm interested to hear how your week has been through the lens of the flavors.
Yeah, so I'll start off with my food. I've kind of got a mix. We did a seafood buffet tonight for dinner, which was delicious. Just I'm a big fan of cracking some crab legs and getting in there. I'm a bit of a abnormality. I think it comes when it comes to crabs because I will just crack open all of the crab legs and scoop out all of the meat into one big pile and then get after it with dunking with butter and everything. As opposed to like eating the little bit at a time and all and just giving myself a small reward per little crab leg crack. I'm like, now let me get all of this, and I've got like my own little crab cake of sorts that I've made from scooping out all the crab meat. But yeah, being on vacation, being down here at the beach has been some good for some of that seafood, but also last night Colleen and I did dinner for everyone, and I made the homemade vodka sauce, which has been kind of one of the staples of our recent Colleen and my recent weeks, where probably once a week or so we'll do this homemade vodka sauce, chop up the garlic, the shallots, the celery, and whip that all up. And so that was a solid one for this week. For my music, we've just had a few different playlists going. We've got a house party playlist. We've got the country music playlist. We've got the beach playlist, and it's fun seeing like all the different vibes of everyone's music's kind of coming together. And there's an amalgamation of different thoughts when it comes to like the house party playlist. There's like people who are like, oh, these are songs that are just like bops that you can jam to. There's other people who were like, oh no, I want the sing-alongs that like are gonna get everyone joining in and singing along to. And so it's fun seeing kind of the different mixes that 10 different people have added across these playlists and everything. And then for my visual medium, Colleen forcibly initially, but got me watching the Love Island USA season that recently started. And so it is just some of the best trash TV that is out there. It's very entertaining, even if the substance is not super deep there. We've been enjoying going through watching that and kind of musing at the chaos that's happening in the villa. So it's been a good time watching that, even though it's not necessarily like my go-to show. It's been a fun one.
Dude, have you seen any of Nick and Vanessa Lachey's productions? Have you seen any of theirs?
Yes, I'm very aware of the Lachey's. They are not my favorite hosts of things. I think they're a little too corny with their commentary for my taste as like host. It like I get a little bit like physical cringing discomfort a lot of times with them. I think they do an okay job, but just not for me. But yeah, I've seen a bit with the Lachey's.
No, dude, like my favorite joke there is they have like they've packaged love like as a product and they like sell it in these like vehicles. Like they
Yeah.
don't just have one show. They've
Oh no,
come
they
up
have.
with like
Yep.
yes, exactly. They've come up with like a bunch of different like love schemes of like these love games that they can put these people in and just like exploit them for
Well,
entertainment.
and it's tough because like I've in a number of these things I'm like watching and I'm like, man, these people seem to have like a really solid connection. Like I think that they could actually in the real world like potentially make it, and the production is just like, you know what we're going to do? Let's throw a tornado of chaos at them and just make it like impossible for them to have to build a normal functional relationship. They're like, no, that's boring. Let's mix it up here. So
That's crazy.
that's part of the cat, which is where I'm like, it's kind of trash TV because at the same time, like, I don't know how anyone could expect to actually meet a partner on one of some of these shows because they're like, I think some people go onto them like genuinely being like, oh, this is, I want to look for love. And then like the most recent episode of Love Island, they're like, people just got voted out basically by America for no other reason than the production was like, let's have America cause some chaos in this decision making process and all. And it's like that's a tough spot to be in.
Really, really wild, but I have to respect the Love Island watch through. It's
It's a commitment.
enlightening if you can make it through, and I think you really learn something about not only yourself but just love. And I think that's something that we can all appreciate.
Yeah, and with that, I think that's a good way to to